Detailed explanation of Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd. Have you ever wondered why Psalm 23 is one of the most beloved and repeated texts in the Bible? It seems simple. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. But the truth is, there is an immense depth hidden in these words. It's as if we are faced with a statement so powerful that it challenges us to believe in something that seems almost impossible, that even in the midst of chaos, we can have peace, provision, and security. And let's be honest, how many times have we doubted this? How many times have we felt that something was missing and wondered where this caring shepherd was? In this video, we're going to dive deep into David's words, discover how he came to this unwavering trust, and more importantly, how you can apply it to your life. Imagine the scene. David, a man accustomed to facing lions, giants, and enemies, speaks of God as a shepherd. Not a king or a warrior, but a shepherd. Someone who cares, who guides, who does not abandon the flock for anything. Psalm 23 is not just beautiful poetry. It's a bold declaration from someone who deeply knew both the dangers of life and divine care. And if I told you that this same confidence could be yours today, that even when everything seems to be going wrong, there is a greater care guiding your every step? Often, we live in a cycle of anxiety, always worried about what we lack, always afraid of not being enough. Psalm 23 challenges us to break this cycle, to experience real rest and a peace that transcends circumstances. And that is the great reward, understanding that in God, there is a place of green pastures and still waters waiting for you, even if the path there seems impossible. So get ready for a journey that can transform not only your understanding of this psalm, but also the way you face the valleys and victories of life. Introduction to Psalm 23 and its historical context. Psalm 23 is one of the most iconic texts of the Bible, known for offering a message of comfort and hope. Imagine a scenario where King David, a man who knew both glory and adversity, composed these words. At that time, he was not just a powerful monarch, but also a shepherd who deeply understood what it meant to care for and protect. Every word written in this psalm reflects the personal experience of someone who had been both on the battlefield and in the fields of pasture. This introduction helps us understand that David spoke not just as a king, but as someone who truly knew what it meant to trust in God's care. Many know Psalm 23 simply as a beautiful and comforting verse, but understanding the historical context brings a completely new depth. David wrote these words amid constant challenges, threats from enemies, moments of isolation, and the highs and lows of leading a nation. He invites us to see God as a loving shepherd, and this image is loaded with meaning, referring to a time when shepherds were known as the guardians of sheep, always vigilant and ready to risk their lives for them. Thus, every verse of Psalm 23 comes alive as we understand that these are not just poetic words, but a genuine expression of trust. David also brings language that is extremely accessible, even to those without a religious or historical background. He transforms the concept of God into something tangible and close, a fatherly figure who guides and protects. And this is powerful because, throughout the centuries, this psalm has served as a beacon for people in times of difficulty, reminding them that there is a greater care, a divine protection, always present. This image of the shepherd who cares for his flock resonates deeply, especially in times of uncertainty, reinforcing the value of having trust in the divine plan. And it is precisely this connection that opens the door to the next topic, where David presents one of the most well-known and powerful declarations. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. From this affirmation, we begin to explore complete trust in divine provision and what that truly means for our daily lives. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Trusting in divine provision. When David declares, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want," he is conveying absolute trust in divine provision. Imagine the tranquility of knowing that, regardless of circumstances, your needs will be met. David speaks of a trust that goes beyond what the eyes can see, a security born of an intimate and constant relationship with God. Just as the shepherd cares for the sheep, guiding them to the best pastures, God cares for his own, ensuring that nothing essential is withheld. This trust is not based on material abundance, but on the certainty that God will provide everything necessary at the right time. The image of the shepherd caring for his sheep is full of symbolism. The shepherd knows each sheep individually, understands their needs, and acts to ensure their well-being. This metaphor illustrates the idea that God is not distant, but attentive to our struggles and needs, willing to guide and protect us. And this protection does not mean the absence of difficulties, but rather the constant presence of a greater care that helps us overcome any obstacle. A practical example of this is how many people, even in times of crisis, manage to find peace and hope by remembering this promise of divine care, knowing that, even in the midst of chaos, they will not lack what is necessary to move forward. On the other hand, this trust also involves action. Trusting that I shall not want is not an invitation to inaction, but to a partnership relationship. Just as sheep need to follow the shepherd's guidance to find the best places to graze, we must also be willing to follow God's direction, even when we do not fully understand the path. It is a call to set aside excessive worries and trust that as we do our part, the rest will be provided. Imagine, for instance, someone who is unemployed. This person should not just wait for things to happen, but should act in faith, looking for opportunities while believing that God will open the right doors. It is in this trust in God's care that we better understand the meaning of the green pastures and still waters that David mentions in the next verse. This promise goes beyond meeting basic needs. It is an invitation to find rest and restoration, knowing that we are in the hands of a shepherd who deeply cares for us. Let us move forward and discover this comforting image of pastures and waters that bring peace. The image of green pastures and still waters. David evokes an image of green pastures and still waters, evoking a sense of rest and renewal. These elements represent God's complete care, not only meeting basic needs, but offering a space of peace and restoration. In the midst of life's pressures, the image of being led to a safe place, where one can take a deep breath and recover strength, is extremely powerful. The green pastures symbolize abundant provision, while the still waters suggest the calm that can only be experienced when we surrender to the shepherd's care. It is like finding an oasis in the midst of the desert of everyday life. When we think of green pastures, we are led to reflect on the moments when we feel our soul restored, whether after an exhausting day or after overcoming a difficult challenge. Just as a shepherd guides the sheep to areas where they can feed and rest, God leads us to places where we can be nurtured and restored, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Imagine someone who, after a long work journey, finds relief in spending time in prayer or meditation, receiving renewed strength. These are the green pastures of life, moments when our soul is filled and strengthened. The still waters reflect a state of calm, a refuge amidst chaos. Sheep are known to be animals that scare easily and need calm waters to feel safe enough to drink. God offers us this same serenity, creating conditions so that we can be nourished without fear. In a world full of agitation and anxiety, these still waters are like a promise that, in God, we can find a place of secure rest. It is the certainty that, even if everything around us is tumultuous, there can be peace within us. And it is with this peace and trust that we face difficult moments, like the valley of the shadow of death that David describes next. This valley is inevitable on the journey, but the security of knowing we have a shepherd by our side changes our entire perspective. Let us explore together the meaning of walking through this valley and how God's presence transforms our fear into courage. And before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and like the video. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, overcoming fear with God. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, says David, presenting an image that is both frightening and deeply comforting. This valley represents the most challenging moments of our journey, those periods of pain, uncertainty, and fear. Yet David affirms that even in these moments, there is no reason to fear, for God is present. The divine presence is the difference between walking alone through a dark valley and having the assurance that, even in the worst circumstances, we are not abandoned. It is an invitation to face our greatest fears with the confidence that we are not alone. This valley is something that everyone passes through at some point. It could be the loss of a loved one, a difficult diagnosis, or a personal crisis. However, David reminds us that we do not need to pass through this valley in despair. When he says, "I will fear no evil," he teaches us that fear does not have to paralyze us. We can indeed feel fear, but we do not need to let it dominate us. Just as a sheep feels secure beside the shepherd, we can find comfort in God's presence, guiding us through these valleys. The shepherd's rod and staff are symbols of this protection and guidance. The rod is used to guide the sheep, keeping them on the right path, while the staff serves to protect them from danger. This shows us that God not only comforts us, but also protects and directs us. How many times, when faced with a problem, have we felt lost and unsure of what to do? At those times, it is important to remember that there is guidance, even when we cannot see the entire way. A practical example of this can be seen in people who find moments of clarity through prayer amidst confusion, feeling guided to make decisions that previously seemed impossible. And so, as we walk through the valley, we find comfort in knowing we are not alone. This journey prepares us to understand what David describes next, a table prepared in the presence of our enemies. It is an image that speaks of victory and abundance, even in the face of difficulties. Let us dive into this powerful scene of triumph and understand what it teaches us about God's continuous care. The shepherd's rod and staff, symbols of protection and comfort. The shepherd's rod and staff are symbols of both protection and comfort. The rod has a curved end, designed to pull the sheep back to the safe path, while the staff is a defensive weapon against predators. David uses these elements to illustrate how God not only guides us, but also defends us from the dangers that arise along the way. Imagine being lost in a dark forest and having someone by your side with a flashlight and a weapon, ensuring that you do not stray and that you are safe from any threat. This is exactly what David tells us God does for us. The rod symbolizes the daily guidance that God gives us. Sometimes, we may feel stubborn or confused, wanting to follow our own ways, but God uses his rod to bring us back, to protect us from ourselves. It is a powerful metaphor for those moments when we do not understand why certain things do not happen in our lives. It may be God guiding us to something better, even though, at the moment, it does not make sense. The staff reminds us of God's active defense for us, protecting us from unseen or misunderstood forces. This comfort also involves knowing that God cares enough to correct us. Just as the shepherd pulls the sheep when it strays from the flock, God corrects us out of love, wanting what is best for us. And this gives us the courage to face the challenges of the valley of the shadow of death, knowing that we have a vigilant protector by our side. A practical example of this is when we make a bad decision, and somehow circumstances lead us to change course. God uses these situations to guide us back to the right path, always with our best interest in mind. This continuous protection brings us to an image of triumph, the banquet prepared in the presence of our enemies. David shows us that, even surrounded by challenges, we can experience complete and abundant victory. Let us explore this scene of celebration and understand what it means for our spiritual and daily lives. A banquet prepared in the presence of enemies, the meaning of victory in God. David describes God preparing a banquet for him in the presence of my enemies, an image that speaks of triumph and abundance, even amidst challenges. It is a scene that symbolizes not only victory, but also a public demonstration that God is on our side. Imagine being surrounded by all those who doubted you, all the challenges that tried to bring you down, and then seeing God preparing a banquet, a true feast of victory, right in front of them. There is no vengeance in this, but rather a powerful affirmation that, with God, our battles are won in surprising ways. This banquet shows us that divine victory is neither small nor discreet. It is something that shines, something that is evident, revealing God's goodness even to those who doubted. This means that, in times of difficulty, we can trust that God will not only help us overcome, but will do so in a way that everyone will see his hand at work. A practical example of this is when, after a great loss or challenge, we find unexpected strength and blessings that completely change our trajectory, proving that God was all along preparing something greater. The presence of enemies at this banquet also teaches us the importance of not being intimidated by circumstances or the opinions of others. David does not ask God to eliminate his enemies before celebrating. Instead, he trusts that God exalts him before them, showing that the victory of those who trust in the Lord does not depend on the absence of adversaries, but on the presence of God himself. It is a lesson about trust and how true security lies in knowing that our worth is not determined by external circumstances, but by divine care. And this celebration leads us to the next step in David's journey, a reflection on the goodness and mercy of God that follow us all the days of our lives. Let us explore this promise together and understand how it applies to our daily walk, bringing peace and confidence for the future. Final reflections on the goodness and mercy that follow us. David ends Psalm 23 with a statement about the goodness and mercy that follow us all the days of my life. He is not talking about a momentary or conditional goodness, but about a constant and guaranteed presence. Just like sheep that are cared for and guided by the shepherd throughout their journey, we too are followed by these divine blessings every day, even when we do not notice. It is a promise that gives us hope and reminds us that, no matter what happens, God is by our side, with renewed goodness and mercy each morning. This idea of being followed by goodness and mercy is comforting, especially when we look back on our lives and see moments of failure or pain. David reminds us that, despite our mistakes, God chooses to follow us with love. This completely changes how we face our difficulties, for we know that there is something greater accompanying and sustaining us. A practical example is when we realize that, after a period of suffering, peace and comfort always come, even if they take time. It is this mercy that rescues and strengthens us, bringing hope to move forward. Finally, David closes the psalm with the promise of dwelling in the house of the Lord forever. It is not just a statement about the future, but also about living in constant communion with God. This promise reminds us that a relationship with God is not just for moments of crisis, but for every day of our lives. The house of the Lord is a place of safety, of belonging, and David invites us to live each day in this place of trust and peace. And so, we move forward confidently, knowing that we are constantly followed by divine goodness and mercy. Now that we have explored each line of Psalm 23, the big question is, how are you going to apply this knowledge to your life? It is easy to hear about trusting in God and feel a momentary comfort, but what if you actually started to live this trust daily? Think about the areas of your life where fear still dominates, where anxiety keeps you up at night. What would change if you remembered every day that there is a shepherd caring for you, guiding you to green pastures and still waters, even when everything seems chaotic? Here is a challenge for you. The next time you face a valley of the shadow of death, remember David's words and ask yourself, do I really believe that God is here with me now? Perhaps it is time to stop, take a deep breath, and surrender that situation to him, trusting that the shepherd's rod will not let you stray. Share in the comments what you thought of this explanation of Psalm 23 and how you intend to apply this teaching. Let us continue this conversation and help each other live out the trust that David expressed so powerfully. And if you want more content like this, you already know, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and join us in this journey of growth and trust. Together, let us explore the depths of this unfailing divine care. See you next time.